Welcome back students to the video lecture series. I am Adil Mansoori from Civil Engineering Department of LG Institute of Engineering and Technology. Okay students, so up till now we have already covered regarding the collection and estimation of wastewater, in which we have already covered the topics like layout of sewerage system of a city, then types of sewers, estimation of wastewater discharge, types of collection system, types of sewerage system, estimation of runoff, then derivation of the Schill's expression for self-cleansing velocity inside sewer, right? Then hydraulic characteristics of sewer, wherein there were two parts. For first part was for the sewer running full, and second part was for sewer running partially full. Okay, and in that we also derive formulae for proportionate area, velocity, discharge, hydraulic mean depth, etc. So today we are going to start with the next topic, that is the sewer appurtenances. Okay, so let us begin. So the first question, what is the meaning of sewer appurtenances? Okay, so sewer appurtenances are actually the structures. Okay, these are the structures which are laid along the sewer line. Okay, then another question, where are they located? So these sewer appurtenances are constructed at suitable intervals along a sewer line. Okay, so for example, if a city has a sewerage network of say 10 kilometers long from the source to the sewage treatment plant, then along the 10 kilometers of length there will be pipes, and for connections of pipes or alignment change, or if there is a junction of sewer, then in that case we connect the sewers with the help of sewer appurtenances. Okay, so why do we need sewer appurtenances? So these structures help in efficient working and maintenance of the sewerage system. So once again, sewer appurtenances are the structures, and they are constructed or located at suitable intervals along the sewer lines, and it is for the efficient working and maintenance of the sewerage systems. Okay, let us move ahead. So next topic is types of structures. Okay, so what are the different types of appurtenances or the structures? So first one is the manholes, drop manholes, then lamp holes, cleanouts, street inlets, catch basins, sand, grease and oil traps, flushing tanks, inverted siphons, and stormwater regulators. Okay, so these are the different types of structures that are used for the efficient working of the sewerage system of a particular city or a town. Okay students, so now we will be looking into each of these structures in detail. So let us start. So the first one is the manhole. Okay, so manholes are masonry or RCC structures constructed at suitable intervals along the sewer lines for the purpose of cleaning the sewer lines. So manholes are the masonry or RCC structures constructed at suitable intervals along the sewer lines for the purpose of cleaning these sewer lines. Okay, they also help in joining the sewer lines and in changing the direction or alignment as well as gradients of the sewer lines. These manholes may also receive the sewers from different directions, having same or different sizes, as I stated in the first slide. Okay, and these manholes are directly constructed over the center line of the sewer. The shapes of these manholes may be circular, rectangular or square. Okay, so in the figure you can see that a manhole is shown, and in the second figure you can see that there is a network of sewer, right? And the boxes that you see after certain intervals are the sewer appurtenances or the manhole. Okay, clear? So let us now move ahead. So let us now have a look at the classification of manholes. Okay, so manholes are broadly classified into three categories based on depths. First one is the shallow, second one is the normal, and third one is the deep. Okay, so when the depth of the manhole varies from 0.75 to 0.9 meter, then it is considered to be a shallow manhole. Okay, then if the depth of the manhole is in between 0.9 and 2 meters, then it is considered to be a normal manhole. And if the depth of the manhole is greater than 2 meter, then it is known as the deep manhole. Okay, so classification of manholes based on depths. Next is the dimensions. The shallow manhole have the minimum internal dimension of 0.9 meter by 0.8 meter. Okay, normal manholes usually have 1 by 1 or 1.2 by 0.9 meter if it is a rectangle, and if the manhole is circular, then minimum diameter should be 0.9 meters. Okay, for deep manhole, if the depth of the deep manhole is from 2 to 2.3, then the diameter provided should be 1.2 meters. For the manhole of depth 2.3 to 9 meters, the diameter that is usually provided is 1.5 meters, and for 9 meters to 14 meters of depth of manhole, you provide 1.8 meters of diameter. Okay, so these are the minimum dimensions for shallow, normal and deep manholes. Shallow manholes are usually covered with light cast iron frames. Normal manholes are usually covered with heavy cast iron frames, and deep manholes are also usually covered with heavy cast iron frames. Okay, so this was the classification of manholes. Moreover, shallow manholes are also known as the inspection chambers, and those manholes are constructed where there is no heavy traffic. Okay, talking about the normal manholes, circular manholes have uniform section in lower portion and slanting at the top so as to narrow down the top opening. Okay, I'll show you in the figure in the upcoming slides. Okay, next, in case of deep manholes, they are provided with steps on the internal surface of any one of the walls. Okay, for a person to get access into the manhole. Understood? Okay students, so let us now move towards the next topic, that is the classification of manholes based on IS codes. Okay, so as per IS code 4111 part 1 1991, the manholes are basically classified into two types, that is the shallow manholes and the deep manholes. Shallow manholes are those having depth less than 2 meters or equal to 2 meters, and deep manholes are those having depth more than 2 meters. Okay, Indian Standard Code 1742/1990 recommends the following sizes of manholes based on the depths. So let us have a look at the table. So if the depth of the manhole is less than 0.8 meter or equal to 0.8 meter, then the minimum internal size should be 0.75 meters by 0.75 meters. If the depth of the manhole is between 0.8 and 2.1 meters, then the minimum internal size should be 1.2 meter by 0.9 meters. And if the depth of the manhole is greater than 2.1 meter, then there are two cases. If we provide circular chamber, then the diameter should be 1.4 meter minimum, and if you provide rectangular chamber, minimum internal dimension should be 1.2 meter by 0.9 meter. Okay, so that's all about the classification of manholes based on IS code. Let us now move towards the next topic, that is the location of manholes. Okay, so manholes are provided at every change in alignment of the sewer line and at every change in gradient of the sewer line. Okay, so whenever there is a change in alignment, right, so if there is a curve or if there is a junction or if there is a dead end, right, so there will be change in the alignment of the sewer line. Okay, so at those places manholes are provided, and also at the change in the gradient, that is, if the 2 points are there and if both the points have change in the elevation or a difference in the elevation, then we need to provide the manholes. Okay, then manholes are also provided at head of every sewer line and whenever there is a change in size of sewer. Okay, so if a sewer having diameter 1.2 meter is to be connected with a diameter of 0.9 meter, then what we can do is you can construct a manhole at the junction. Okay, then on straight sewer lines, manholes are provided at regular intervals and the spacing of manholes on such lines depends on the size of the sewer. So this is the picture of the sewer line having the change in the gradient. Okay, so let us now move ahead. So the spacing between two manholes also depend on the equipments used for cleaning the sewer lines. Okay, Manual of Sewerage and Sewage Treatment prepared by Central Public Health and Environmental Engineering Organization recommends the manhole spacing as per the table. So following table shows the recommended spacing of manhole as per IS 4111 part 1 1991. Okay, so first column shows the diameter of sewer in mm and recommended spacing in meters. Okay, so if the diameter of sewer is up to 300 mm, then recommended spacing is 45 meters. If in between 301 and 500, then the recommended spacing between the manholes is 75. For diameter of sewer ranging from 501 to 900, the recommended spacing is 90. For 901 to 1200, spacing recommended is 120. For case of 1201 to 1500, the recommended spacing is 250. And for the diameter of sewer greater than 1500 mm, recommended spacing is 300. Okay, so larger is the diameter, recommended spacing goes on increasing. Okay students, so Manual of Sewerage and Sewage Treatment prepared by Central Public Health and Environmental Engineering Organization recommends the manhole spacing as below. Okay, the previous one that we saw was based on the IS code. This is based on the CPSW manual. Okay, so if the diameter of sewer is in between 0.9 and 1.5 meter, then the recommended spacing is 90 to 150 meter. If the sewer is ranging from 1.5 to 2 meters, then the recommended spacing is in between 150 and 200. And for greater than 2 meter diameter, the recommended spacing is 300. Okay, we were discussing about the manhole. Okay, so let us start with the components of the manhole. There are 6 components of the manhole. First one is the access shaft, working chamber, base and side walls, bottom or invert, steps or ladders, and cover and frame. Okay, so these are the main 6 components of the manhole. Let us have a look at the picture so that you will get a better clarity. So on the top there is a manhole cover, that is the cover and frame. Okay, that the 6th component of the manhole. Then there is an access shaft through which a person can enter into the working chamber below the access shaft. Okay, so first and second component of the manhole. Okay, then base will be at the bottom of the manhole where the person can stand. Okay, and side walls on the each of the 4 sides, which are usually made up of masonry or RCC. Then there is a bottom or invert. Bottom or invert are usually a semicircular channel at the bottom of the manhole. In detail we will be discussing it later. Then the steps or ladders. So with the help of steps and ladders, the person will be able to enter into the working chamber. Okay, so these are the main components of the manhole. Let us have a look at it one by one. So the first is the access shaft. Access shaft is the upper portion of the deep manhole. Okay, and it gives access to the working chamber. So talking about the minimum sizes of the access shaft, if the manhole is rectangular, then the minimum size of the access shaft should be 0.75 meter by 0.6 meter, and if the manhole is circular, then the minimum size of the access shaft should be 0.7 meter in diameter. Okay, next, talking about the working chamber, minimum size of the working chamber in case of deep manhole and is a rectangular, then the minimum size should be 1.2 meter by 0.9 meter. Okay, and the larger dimension should be in the direction of flow always. Okay, and in case of circular chamber, it should be minimum 1.2 meter in diameter. Okay, talking about the height of the working chamber should not be less than 1.8 meter, so that a person can at least stand. Okay, so have a look at the manhole once again. Clear? This is another picture of the manhole. You can see that the person is standing at the bottom, and you can figure out that there is a bottom or invert, which is a semicircular channel, right? And till half portion of the manhole you can see the working chamber, and upper is the access shaft. There is also the ladders for a person to get access into the working chamber. Okay, you can see the side wall as well. So these are the components of the manhole. Okay, there is another picture. Okay, so I hope this is clear to you. Let us now talk about the base and side walls. So base of the manhole is made up of plain cement concrete bed. Okay, and the plain cement concrete supports the side walls. Now the side walls of the manholes are made of brick masonry or stone masonry, or preferably RCC. Okay, brick walls are very common, and the minimum thickness of the brick wall is given in the table. Okay, so let us have a look at the table. So minimum thickness of the concrete bed, if the depth of the manhole in meter is up to 0.8 meter, then the bed thickness in centimeter should be 15 centimeter. If the depth of the manhole is in between 0.8 and 2.1 meter, then the bed thickness should be 23 centimeters. And if the manhole is 2.1 or more, then the bed thickness should be 30 centimeter. Okay, so this was about the minimum thickness of the concrete bed. Okay, now talking about the thickness of the side walls, up to 1.5 meter depth of manhole, the thickness of the wall is usually 20 centimeters, and if the manhole is greater than 1.5 meter deep, then the thickness of the wall is usually 30 centimeters. Okay, the inside and outside surface of the side wall is plastered with cement mortar of 1.1:3, and the inside is made smooth by applying thin cement slurry to the plaster surface. Okay, and the RCC wall are costly, so they are not preferable except in some special conditions, okay, or some special circumstances. There is another thumb rule in order to get the thickness of the wall, that is T equals to 10 into 4D, where T will be thickness of side walls in centimeter and D will be depth of the manhole in meters. Okay, so this was about the base and the side walls. Let us now talk about the bottom or inward. So have a look at the picture first. So a semicircular channel of cement concrete is constructed at the bottom of the manhole, fine, and the diameter of the channel is equal to the diameter of the sewer. Okay, so you can have a look at the picture that at the bottom there is a semicircular channel which is large, right, and near the end of the sewer or near the end of the manhole you can see the sewer diameter. Okay, so the diameter of channel is usually equal to the diameter of the sewer. Okay, and above the horizontal diameter, the sides of the channel are extended vertically near up to the crown of the sewer as shown in the figure, and top edges are rounded off and made to slope towards the channel to form benching. Okay, the slope provided for benching varies from 1 in 10 to 1 in 6. Benching enables the floor of the chamber to be drained. Okay, benching enables the floor of the chamber to be drained of backup wastewater. Bottom of the channel is the same level as that of the inward of sewer, and when two or more sewers enter the manhole, similar branch channel for each addition sewer is constructed. At the junction with main channel, smooth curve is provided to the branch channel, and when sewers bringing water, wastewater and taking away the same from the manholes have different diameters, the crown of all sewers are kept at the same level. Necessary slopes are provided to the main and branch channels constructed at the bottom steps or ladders. So we are going to start with a new topic which is known as drop manhole. Okay, so drop manhole is constructed when a sewer line is at a higher level and is to be connected with a sewer line which is at a lower level. Okay, so you can see over here that from the left there is one sewer and the manhole bottom is at a lower elevation, right? So for that connection we have to provide a drop manhole. Okay, so such a situation arises when branch sewers are laid at a lower depth below the ground, whereas the main sewers are laid at a greater depth below the grounds. Okay, so when branch sewer at a shallow depth is to be connected with the main sewer at a greater depth, the wastewater from the branch sewer shall fall downwards, and such a situation is not desirable because falling wastewater shall damage the bottom of the manhole, and even very strong bottom will be required. Okay, so moreover the high turbulence will be created at the invert of sewer and causing disintegration of the organic particles and subsequently reduction in their sizes. Okay, so the reduction in size of organic particle later reduces the efficiency of clarifiers. Okay, so when the difference between the invert level of branch sewer and peak flow level is in main sewer is more than 600 mm, then drop manholes are provided. Okay, so you can see the picture clear. Okay students, so our next topic is lamp holes. So these are provided along the sewer lines when there is a curve in sewer line, and due to shortage of space manholes are not possible. Okay, so you can see there is change in gradient and it is not possible to construct the manhole, right? So once again, these are provided along the sewer lines when there is a curve in sewer line, and due to shortage of space manholes are not possible. Also, when there is a change in the gradient line, it is not possible to construct the manhole, right? So a vertical shaft is connected to the sewer by a T-band. You can see over here, this is a T-band, right? So a vertical shaft is connected to the sewer by a T-band while inspecting lamp is inserted in the lamp hole, and from the manholes on the both the sides of the lamp hole is checked whether the light is seen or not. Okay, so if sewer is chalked, then light will not be seen in the nearby manhole, right? And lamp holes have become obsolete nowadays, so they are not recommended nowadays. Okay, clear students? Okay students, so next topic is cleanouts. Okay, so you can see the picture of the cleanouts. So cleanouts are constructed in sewer lines for the purpose of facilitating cleaning of sewers. Okay, so an inclined pipe is connected to the sewer line. You can see in the picture, right? And through this inclined pipe, the cleaning rod is inserted, right? So that anything that will must have been jammed or anything which has chalked the sewer line will be cleaned. Okay. So next topic is street inlets. For collection of storm water, street inlets are provided. You can see over here, right? So street inlets are connected with the storm water or a combined sewer by means of stoneware pipes of diameter 25 to 30 centimeter. Okay, so you can see over here that on every curb or pavement they have provided the street inlet. Okay, and the street inlets are connected to the center of the crossroads. You can see there is a circle and it shows manhole, right? So all these street inlets are connected to this manhole, and whatever the rainfall, that is the storm water, is collected in the street inlets is then transferred to the sewer line. Okay, Okay students, so let us now talk about the classification of street inlets. So there are three types of street inlets. First one is known as curb inlet, second one is known as gutter inlet, and the third one is known as the combined inlet. Okay, so let us have a look at each of them one by one. So the first one is the curb inlet. You can see the picture of curb inlet, right? So you can see the road surface, and adjacent to the road surface there is a pavement or a walkway, right? So from the road surface and the walkway there is a vertical opening which is provided for storm water to enter. Okay, and this water gets collected in the catch pit. Okay, so that after collection it is transferred to the sewer. Okay, and on the top of the catch pit there is a rough quota stone flooring. Okay, and it is used for walkway. Clear students? Next is gutter inlet. So these inlets are directly placed below the roads. You can see, right? So at the top of the catch basin, bar screens or precast RCC perforated covers are provided. Okay, so through these perforated RCC covers, water enters into the catch pit and reaches the sewer. Okay, whereas in the previous case it was provided on the side. Okay, here the inlets are provided at the top. Okay students, next is combined inlet. So in this the storm water enters from the top as well as the sides of the catch pit. So you can see the picture, right? The storm water will enter the catch pit from the top as well as from the side. Clear students? Let us now talk about the catch basin. So these are special types of inlet. Here the size of pit is larger and sufficient volume is kept for grit and sand particles to settle at the bottom. Okay, so whereas in the previous case, what was the issue? They had a small pit so that the water will be collected and it will be sent to the sewer, right? Whereas in this case the basin is large, so that whatever the water is getting accumulated and it will have some sand particles or grit particles, so it will get settled at the bottom of the basin. Okay students, let us now talk about a new topic, that is the sand, grease and oil traps. So this is the picture of sand, grease and oil trap. So we know that wastewater from hotels or restaurants or kitchens and even industries which contain grease, oil and fats, right? Then these wastewater is required to be removed before wastewater enters the sewer line, right? So the wastewater from the hotels, restaurants, kitchens and industries which contain grease, oils and fats are needed to be removed before wastewater is entering the sewer line. If oil, grease or fats are not removed, then it will stick to the surface of sewer and become hard, and as a result it will obstruct the wastewater flow. Okay students, so this is the picture of sand, grease and oil traps. You can see that at the top there is inlet with grating, right, and there are two baffle walls are provided, right, and the heavier particles will get deposited at the bottom and oil and fat being lighter than water, it will float on the top, okay, which is usually removed by the baffle wall, which is of the hanging type, right? And the rest clear water is then transferred to the sewer line. Okay, students. So we are going to start with the flushing tanks. Okay, so these tanks are provided for storing water and then releasing the same in sewer for the purpose of flushing it. Okay, these tanks are located at the dead end of the sewer, and the capacity of flushing tanks depends upon the diameter of sewer to be flushed. Okay, so smaller the diameter of sewer, lesser quantity of flushing water should be used, and more the diameter of sewer, then more the water should be used. Okay, next is, according to IS 4111 1991, the detailed specification of flushing tanks for sewer having diameter less than 600 mm are given. Okay, and the flush water quantity should be sufficient to fill the sewer at least half over the whole length of the sewer, or from one flush point to the next point. Okay, so the approximate water quantity required to flush the sewer for diameter of different sizes for the length of 75 to 90 meter are as follows. So you can see that the diameter of sewer in mm is given and the quantity of water in liters is given, right? So for the diameter of 250 mm, then the quantity of water to be used for flushing is in between 1400 to 1700 liters. Okay, for the diameter of sewer, that is 350 mm, right? So for the diameter of sewer 350 mm, the quantity of water used for flushing is between 1700 to 2700 liters. If the diameter is 400 mm, then the quantity of water in liter is 2700 to 3600. And if the diameter of sewer in mm is 450 mm, then the quantity of water in liter is from 3600 to 4500. Okay, so these are the different values for water required for flushing in flushing tanks. Okay, so flushing tanks are of two types, that is mainly manually operated flushing tanks, and second one is the automatically operated flushing tanks, right? But the manually operated flushing tanks are nowadays obsolete and not used. Okay, let us have a look at the automatically operated flushing tanks. So it consists of machinery or concrete chamber, and a water inlet pipe is provided to this chamber to fill this. Okay, a U-tube with bell cap at its one end connects the chamber with sewer, and when water is filled in the chamber, it will enter in the bell also, right? So as soon as the water level rises to a certain level, siphonic action takes place, and the capacity of these tanks is around 1900 to 1400 liters and is adjusted in such a way that it works twice or thrice a day. Okay, two times or three times a day. Clear? Okay, students, so next topic is inverted siphon. So these are normally provided when the sewer line has to cross an obstacle like a railway or roadway. Okay, so in the inverted siphon, hydraulic gradient line is above the flow line. So where as in true siphon, the hydraulic gradient line is below the flow line. Okay, so inverted siphons are also known as depressed sewers. So the pipes of inverted siphon must be able to withstand internal pressure. The diameter of these pipes should be such that the flow velocity is non-silting, and high velocities are not obtained in very large sewers carrying very low flow of sewage. It is therefore required to provide three pipes in parallel and separated with lateral weirs. It is recommended that the siphon should have a velocity of 0.9 meter per second even at minimum discharge. So, inverted siphon is made usually of three pipes laid side by side. One of these three pipes is meant for carrying minimum wastewater flow and the other one for maximum flow in dry weather, whereas the third pipe is a combined wet weather flow during rainy season. Okay, students? So this is the picture. You can see that on the left hand side there is one chamber and on the right hand side there is one chamber. In between there might be any railways or roadways, right? So what you have to do is you have to make a depression and connect those two sewer line with the help of these pipes. Okay, so these pipes, as I said, they are three different pipelines. Okay, so you can see the section and the plan. Okay, students, so I hope this is clear to you. Next is stormwater regulators. So these are constructed in combined sewerage system and their function is to divert the excess storm water in the nearby system. Sewers are laid to carry the peak flow, but sometimes because of the excess rainfall, storm water needs to be disposed and is excessive. So storm water to be disposed is excessive and capacity of sewer is not sufficient for rapid disposal. Okay, so there are three different types of stormwater regulators. First one is the leaping weir. Second one is known as overflow diversion through pipe. And the third one is known as siphon spillway. Okay, let us have a look at it in detail one by one. So first one is the leaping weir. So it consists of an opening in the invert of the combined sewer through which normal storm flow is diverted to the intercepting sewer and the excess flow leaps over the combined sewer to flow in the nearby stream. So you can see. Okay, so this is the plan only, right? So there is a combined sewer and there is adjustable crest. So whenever there is a requirement, the crest is so adjusted that the water will flow instead of main stream, that is combined sewer, it will flow into the intercepting stream. Clear, students? Next topic is overflow diversion through pipes. That is, in this type of appurtenances, opening at suitable heights above the inverts of sewer are made at suitable interval along the length of the combined sewer. Okay, so these openings are joined to the storm water drain pipe for disposal by it to the stream. Okay, so you can see. So on the left you can see there is a combined sewer, right? And as I said that up above certain height a pipe is connected with the storm water discharge, right? So excess water will flow from the combined sewer to the stormwater discharge, stormwater pipeline. Okay. Okay, students. So let us now start with the next topic, that is siphon spillway. Okay. So this method provides most effective type of stormwater relief work. Okay. It is automatic and works on the principle of siphonic action. Siphonic action starts when the level of wastewater rises in the sewer beyond the crest level of the siphon. Okay, so there is a siphon connected with the sewer, and the level of crest is kept at the level reaching by the maximum wastewater flow in dry weather. Okay, so the level of crest is kept at such a level that in the sewer maximum wastewater flow is reached. So at that particular level crest is kept. Okay, and thus siphonic action is not taking place at the time of maximum flow in dry weather. Okay, so when wastewater level in the sewer increases the crest level, wastewater enters in the siphon pipe and mouth of air pipe is sealed and wastewater flow starts in the siphon pipe. When wastewater level reduces and becomes lower than the crest level, air from the sewer enters the air pipe and prevent the siphonic action. So you can see, right? So this is on the left hand side, you can see the combined sewer, right? And at the maximum flow, at the level of maximum flow, the crest is adjusted, right? And there is an air pipe connected to the crest, and the combined sewer is also connected to the crest. So when the level is increased, then the air from the pipe, that is air from the air pipe, is blocked and the water will flow through the crest and enter into the overflow channel on the right hand side, okay, through the siphon pipe. Clear, students? So that's all for today's video.